Whether it's racing on the water or rebuilding the boat ashore, our teams are pushing on towards Genova.
It's probably the calmest day we've had in the entire race. To have flat water, not too many maneuvers, just like this. So it's almost like this leg is rewarding us a little bit with these nice conditions.
Yeah.
You know, not upwind and 30 knots. It's just nice and calm. We can just look outside a bit. You know, look at the islands, look at the scenery, and I think that's one thing that you can always forget to do when you're doing this race. So it's nice to have a bit of time to do that and kind of take in the adventure side as well as the racing side. Cruising. As much as this is a race, we're cruising right now.
Welcome to the Ocean Race Show. This is where we left our Amoccas yesterday. And while Will Harris on board Team Malizia was pretty relaxed about the light winds wedged between the Channel Islands, not all of our sailors were.
No wind. No wind at all. We are trying to sort out which side we put the sail to get some speed with no wind. Not easy.
In this small amount of wind, the boat not only stops moving, but stops working. The rudders need water flowing over them to turn the boat. If you stop dead in the water, then you have no control over the boat's heading at all. And when that happens, it can be hard to line up to the new wind again. Our teams were having to manually pull the head sails over, backing them to try to blow the bow away from the wind, regain some movement, and give the rudders something to work with.
All right, you can start pulling Trav back up.
Too much current for attack or not enough wind?
No, just a slow tack. Slow tack.
No wind again and again. We need to be patient.
All of our Amoccas waited for the wind, with all the crews trying to make the most out of any small puff of breeze, with their hopes constantly dashed when the sails struggled to produce enough power to move their heady, round-the-world yachts. But a breath of wind built to a gentle breeze, and soon our boats could make progress, albeit very gradual.
And we have done 15 miles in the past 6 hours. So normally we do 15 miles in 20 minutes or half an hour. So it's very good to have some breeze back, and it's a nice fresh summer smell. And yeah, it's sunny. We have nice sail set up, and yeah, it's just good. Life is good.
It may have been good to be moving and freshening breeze, but Team Malizia had some miles to make up, being back in third place. But whether it was the wind, coincidence, or aggressive tactics from Biotherm, the French boat ahead seemed to match and block their path west, and the two boats finished the day separated by the same distance. At sunset, they had more visitors wishing them well. But the most grateful part was the wind. It was blowing unhelpfully from the southwest, but any breeze is better than none, especially going into a night of intense racing. Through the night, the wind held, and it was more about speed than tactics, with the boats behind making up ground on the race leader, Team Holcim-PRB.
We lost a bit during the night on Biotherm, who gained around 10 miles on us, but we still have a good lead at the moment, so far so good.
We know that 11th Hour Racing Team have been hard at work in The Hague since they were forced to retire from the last leg. So we are now very lucky to be joined by Mark Tao, CEO of the team. Mark, what's the latest? We've seen so much activity, and we've seen some incredible work. Jack Boutel talked us through it yesterday. What's the latest for you guys today?
Yeah, so the latest is the tech team's been working around the clock. I can't say enough about the effort that they've put in and the quality of the work that's being done. So where we stand this morning is that the final few bits of laminate went on overnight. We're just doing the final post-cure. And the boat should be ready to go this evening. We've got some structural testing planned this afternoon. And if everything passes, then we're trying to shove off as quickly as we can from here and head down to Genoa.
Are you surprised that you've been able to fix the boat? Because I remember listening to Charlie Enright and everybody else where they were sort of around the dock, and certainly by my uneducated eye, I looked at it and I thought, that's through structure. You know, it's not just something you can just put a plaster on. Is this great shore team? Is it not as bad as you thought? I mean, what's the situation?
I think all of the above. I mean, it was a large hole. You know, I mean, you could crawl in and out of it, and there were some pretty impressive pictures. But once you sort of get over the initial reaction of wow, that's a lot of damage, and start getting into the actual process of fixing it, pull off all the broken bits, and start grinding back to find the extent of where everything ends, then begins the process of moving forward. And yeah, the guys have done an incredible job. You know, making a bunch of carbon repairs and putting the whole boat back together, and it's been a full team effort. I'm so proud of what they've done.
And so what does the boat do if it passes its structural trials, if everything's good, you guys are happy with the repair, steps after that?
Yeah, so for us, the goal is to complete the journey around the world and to get to Genoa in time for the import race. There's not a single person in this team that doesn't want to see that happen. And you know, from the sailing team side, they're really fired up to get there. And in a lot of ways, we're racing the clock. So for us, this race isn't over. So we'll be racing the clock, treating it very much the same as if we were actually racing in the event, and doing everything we can to get there for the grand finale.
Lastly, I just want to go to Guyot Environment Team Europe, because they've left the dock this morning. Obviously, they've retired from the race. First of all, I mean, I thought it was quite impressive that Benjamin and the team of Guyot kind of came up to you. You guys on 11th Hour Racing Team sort of received that really nicely. I mean, that was pretty good, because I'm sure there was a lot of emotions on both teams running there. What's it been like with your boat on the dock, their boat on the dock, and kind of both teams working alongside each other? How has that whole thing played out?
Yeah, I think it's a challenging situation, and nobody wants to, you know, none of this was intentional. Nobody wants to end up in this situation, but accidents do happen. And I think the way Ben and Seb and the entire team have handled it has been really admirable. They've taken responsibility. They've been, you know, overly supportive, offering to help in any way they can. And the boats have been docked right next to each other. We've seen them quite a bit in the last couple of days, and there's no bad blood. There's been a really good rapport, and you know, they were also looking at trying to get to Genoa as well. I think there's a pretty big difference without their bowsprit. The routing, just using a J2 to get to Genoa, is quite a bit slower without having a bowsprit, and therefore not having a J0 with all the light air sailing that's likely to happen in the Med. So I think for them it's not feasible to get to Genoa, and they've made their plans accordingly. But just can't say enough about how those guys have handled the difficult situation.
Just one chapter. Towards the end. Okay.
Now, what did Mark mean when he was saying that Guyot Environment Team Europe weren't going to be able to make it to Italy in time with the repairs that they were able to do? And why was it that 11th Hour Racing Team were able to get their boat sorted far quicker than we all feared at the beginning? Well, let's take a little bit of a look at exactly what was needed. So we'll start off with 11th Hour Racing Team. So for 11th Hour Racing Team, we're really interested in this back corner. And back here on the boat, we've got an awful lot going on. We have all the loads from the rudders. We've got all the slamming of the boat as it's skipping along on its foils at the bottom of the hull. And we've also got all the pulling forces from the runners on either corner of the boat, yanking the back of the boat up. And that's going to bend the entire structure of the boat. And if you don't want it to bend, you've got to build in an awful lot of strength. So inside here, there are bulkheads to take the load of the main track. There's all sorts of carefully laid fibers running in all kinds of directions. Thankfully, the impact with Guyot Environment Team Europe was just in front of that all-important aft bulkhead. And it wasn't quite far enough forward to impact on all the load-bearing areas where the deck was. It was still a really complicated repair, and my hat is off to the shore crew of 11th Hour Racing Team to be able to put it back together. But they were dealt a small mercy in that area. But what about Guyot Environment Team Europe? Well, for them, for their boat, it's a little bit different. Guyot Environment Team Europe, their damage was towards the bow. And while it was nowhere near as bad as the damage that we saw on 11th Hour Racing Team, it was only just taken by that crash box at the front. That area is actually a hugely important part of the structure. There, the forestay can go right the way up to the top of the mast, and that's an incredible bit of load bearing. But also, we've got the bowsprit on the front, and that was removed, snapped clean away. So they are unable to sail with any of their bigger sails, masthead code 0, any of the spinnakers, the kind of sails that you would need to sail in the light winds of the Med. So they've done their routing, they've done their calculations, and they know that for Guyot Environment Team Europe, if they are going to sail on just their J2, which is great in the Southern Ocean, superb if you've got 30 knots of breeze, if they sail with just that boat, they will never make it to Genova in time. So sadly, for Guyot Environment Team Europe, it seems like they're going to have to make other plans.
About the bowsprit is break, the bow of the boat is delaminate. We have a hole too, so the team have just patched it to do a provisional repair. We will have a lot of work at home at the yard to repair the boat. The boat is too damaged and we can't use front sail, so if we begin to deliver to Genova now, we will arrive after the end of the race. Yeah, we have proposed our help to 11th Hour, but yeah, they are a strong team and they have managed them repaired. We have just give them some coffee and some cakes. Yeah, they have done an amazing job. I think they will follow us now to go directly to Genova. I hope they will arrive in time. Yeah. I hope we will welcome 11th Hour in Genova with the team. That can be a nice end of this race after 6 months of events.
This race is never easy, and everybody here in race control and at the Ocean Race headquarters in Alicante is wishing the best of luck to 11th Hour Racing Team and Guyot Environment Team Europe. Can't wait to see both of those teams in Genova, whatever route they take. For our VO65 teams, they have faced very similar conditions to that of our Amokas. Very slow progress, becalmed at times and waiting for wind. But it did return and allowed the chasing pack to put pressure on the leader, even if it was slow creeping through the calm waters. Wind Whisper Racing Team was leading the pack out towards the tip of England with a narrow half-mile lead. When the boats behind, every single one of them ran out of wind as the Polish boat, our overall race leader, sailed on to the west. There was one boat that fared better in the park-up. Austrian Ocean Racing, powered by Team Genova to the south, was still managing to move just. Not much for the skipper, Gerwin Janssen, to do, but wait to see if this move was the smart one.
So my life is really hard as a skipper. Yeah, you can see. No, but a joke. No, it's like we had a couple of hours with no wind, and that can be very frustrating because you want to move. You see the others moving, so you think we are missing the shift. But at the end, it's all about patience. And we have been patient. Guys have been trimming the boat well, and we're moving again. We're actually making some miles on the guys all the way in the north, so that's good.
While the Austrians managed to slowly squeeze back to the group, the others were struggling to make any progress. And when the wind did return and the boat started moving again, it was clear how many miles had been lost to the leaders.
I think we went less than 40 miles in 12 hours and had an average of less than 4 knots of breeze. At one point we had the tide against us and were going backwards. Hats off to Wind Whisperer. They did a really good job of managing to get west and stayed in the breeze, and they now have a pretty significant lead.
It really was a big lead, 30 to 60 miles, which relative to the tight racing so far on this leg, it's a distance that's massive. But it's far from over, with 1,800 miles of racing left to play out. So as everyone was moving once again, Wind Whisper Racing Team have positioned themselves nicely between the pack and the new wind to come. It's going to be tricky for Wind Whisper Racing Team to keep the other VO65s locked behind them because we have some very interesting transitions forecast in the breeze. But for the next 24 hours or so, we are expecting to see our Amoccas and VO65s keep on that upwind course. Slow but steady progress as we continue our journey towards the Mediterranean.